Hello. So, welcome to the first episode of Be Open and Authentic with Rohit. So, today we have one of my ex colleagues, one of my closest friends, and who share a lot of similar values and similar interest. So, there is a reason that we have him on the show, and you will get to know the show, get to know more as we move further in the show, right? And before we get into the discussion, I just want to reiterate the purpose or motivation of doing this, because just for the reason that I want to constantly remind myself of why I'm doing this, and also want to make sure the guest is okay with that too, right? So we are not here to create a viral content or find a way to create content that we can monetize, right? Not here for the clickbaits, obviously, but the goal is to create a content that can add value to the listeners while we enjoy the conversation. So if both are not meeting the purpose, so if that's not a good combination, so there is no point in for either for me or the guest, or for anyone, either doing the show or viewing the show. So let's see how that goes. And one thing is that we are okay with 0 views, right? And Meet is okay too. So that's one thing that I made sure, because I don't want him to be disappointed after a while, because that's the reality. This is the first episode, but I'm sure we can have a lot more solid content, right? So just Meet, welcome to the show. Thanks for supporting me and being here without any hesitation, right?
Oh
So
no,
thank you.
definitely. I'm really glad that you started this channel, and I feel like we didn't have a conversation for such a long time, and this is actually a good way to open up and have a deep conversation on any topics that come our mind, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah, that's one point, and it's also good way to catch up. And even most of the times our conversations are super long and also
Right.
intense, right? We always
Correct.
talk about something that's actually useful to many people. And even we are not shy away sharing some of the personal stuff. It's okay, right? Just chill and enjoy the conversation. Cool.
That's true. Cool.
Yep. Cool. So hobbies life treating you, by the way?
Oh, pretty good, I would say, and at the same time, hectic with the work stuff and hectic with the life stuff, I would say as well. But
For
overall,
sure.
life is enjoyable. How about yours?
Yeah, it's going. Just experimenting. As I have always been doing, right? So was doing some startup, mentoring stuff, and yeah, it's and just started with this podcast, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, I can't complain.
Are you
And the
still
personal life is going fine.
focusing? Are you still focusing on your startup on the side as well, or are you?
Not mine, but I'm just trying to help others at this point, because
Okay.
mine it's going to be a lot more intense. So I just want to take some time after the marriage before I just don't want
Okay.
to, I
I see.
just don't want my wife to have tough time, since we just got
Okay.
3 years, right? So
Oh yeah, you
cool.
just got married, so congratulations. And
Thank you,
how
and
is
congrats to you
married
too.
life?
You got engaged. I was
Oh yeah,
super excited to see that.
thank you, thank you. So how is married life treating you? I know we have talked about it offline, but I want to talk about
Yeah,
it in the
so
podcast as well.
I'm gonna say the same thing. It's really interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm enjoying it. But there is just so much to learn, dude. Because when we are bachelors, right? At least for the most part, I wasn't dating anyone, or I was just focusing on something or the other all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then whenever the weekend or whenever the work is over, whenever the weekend comes, I just either be lazy or go play something and do
Mm-hmm.
nothing else with life, right? But here, you have to be constantly active, and just be active throughout the day and throughout the weekend as well, because just so that no one gets bored, and we're always doing something. Particularly for the fact that Bhavana is still in US for the first time, so she will have a lot more interest to explore, while I've been here consider long timer in a way, 8 years, I guess. So just
Are you,
trying to balance that interest and all the stuff. So
so are you seeing the way she sees the United States as you saw it, because you came here and you did your masters here first and then actually started working. So, we both have a different perspective compared to someone who directly came here for work. So, what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
No, it's a lot different, right? Because we, and particularly, since we are a little more career oriented, we had a lot of things to figure out when we come to US, right? Be
Right.
it the accommodation or
Mhm.
finances, which is the biggest part of it,
Right.
and just trying to get in touch with people, trying to find extensive and get good with grades and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And over the time, it gets into the routine, and we just get accustomed to it, and then we'll be I think a lot more lazier whenever we get a free time, because we have been constantly hustling right from the go.
Mhm.
Various, and I think it's different for whoever is coming on H4EAD or is
Mhm.
a dependent, right?
Mhm.
So they'll have a whole new different perspective. They want to explore US,
Right.
and and they want to try a lot more places, and which we might have tried already. Or
Mhm.
if not, we have opinions that, hey, I don't want to go there to that place for about, and so for whatever the reason, we cannot
Right.
just say those out, because they want to
Right.
explore. So I just constantly remind myself that, hey, don't get my biased or opinionated mind get into the way, because that's also create conflicts, and that's not the way I should treat her either. So I was like, okay, I'm just constantly reminding.
So, what is that one or two frustrating things that you have done repeatedly often, but Bhavna has not, and that's why she's trying to do that? Is there one or two things that comes to your mind?
Yeah, particularly I think her perspective towards life is a lot more different than mine, right? In the sense that she lives in present, and she always want to do things together a lot more often than what I have been used to.
But come on, man, you're married now, so you are
I know,
supposed to
right? I know
do
that's the thing, right? Because you'll be like, okay, end of the work day, if you don't feel like
that.
going out, but that's then when the real personal life starts.
Mm.
So sometimes I try to say, hey, I know just want to stay home, and but that's not what I should be doing, because I should just go out and have a fun time. But that's not always the case, because when you are working and
Mhm.
when you have so many extracurricular activities, like this podcast, right? It's not easy. You have to find a way to
True.
manage. But getting there. We'll see.
Nice.
Cool. So yeah, I just want to learn more about you more. I want to talk about the topics that we never discussed so far, which is another reason that I'm excited for this episode.
Mhm.
And but before I go further, I just want to uh, give you a chance to introduce yourself to the
Oh, sure.
people, based on whatever the information that you want to give. So
Cool. Yep. So, hello everyone. So, my name is Meech, and currently I'm working for NVIDIA for the past 7 to 8 months. I'm working as a senior software engineer in the, I would say, autonomous vehicles group of NVIDIA, which is a
nice.
fairly new group, I would say. And before that, I was working at Microsoft, and then before that, I was working with Rohit at Capital One. We were in the same team,
Yeah.
and I before that I did my master's in machine learning and signal processing, which was a different field than computer science or software engineering as per se. And yeah, the transition was difficult, and obviously
Sure.
we'll go deeper into that as well. And before that, I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering from IIT Indore back in India. So
Nice.
I have basically jumped all over the places. I still haven't fixed on what particularly thing I want to do,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
I'm getting there.
Nice.
Yep.
So at least are you said that, okay, SD software development is for me, or I still have that in back of mind that, hey, should I try something else?
But that's a really good question. So I I would say it depends on what I like at that particular moment. There are certain phases where you feel like, okay, this particular 2-3 months, I really enjoy coding or really like designing. I want to focus on that. Obviously, not all work will allow you to do that. Certain times, based on the work requirements, they will ask you to have different things or do different things.
Yep.
But so far, I cannot complain. So yeah, I do really enjoy software engineering for
Nice.
now. But
Sure.
what's to say, means if something's changed after 2-3 years, I might as well move to, let's say, product management or more on the
Yep.
just engineering management side. But currently, I want to just learn and dive deeper into software engineering.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, I think I have the similar sort of perspective too, because I struggled, I hustled my way to become a software developer. as you know. But yeah, still have in back of my mind that, hey, is this something that I want to do for long? I mean, I'm enjoying it truly, but I think at some point, I think I'll have to make a call. We'll see when the time comes. We'll talk more about it. But before that, I want to ask you this, right? So how was your IIT experience? Because we as Indians, right, we are always fascinated with IITians and getting into
Right.
IIT, and people work so hard to get there. And I don't think I can ever get into IIT even if I get another chance with
I
so much
think
experience.
I think
So
landing in IIT, it's more about chance than anything, and plus with the recent changes, I took IIT back in 2011, so that's more than a decade ago.
yeah,
Whereas now in the recent years, things have changed. They have made two-level examinations and stuff like that. And during our time, it was definitely a luck-based system. Like, yeah, you can work really hard, but also at the same time, there are thousands and millions of people also working. That's not at the maybe not at the same level, even higher level than you, and still just because on that particular exam day they might get sick, or they are not in the mood, or their head is not in the right place, and they might flunk it, right? So I would say don't beat yourself
sure.
up if you're not getting into it or not. It's just a luck-based system.
No,
But
so
again, yeah,
I think you're too humble to say this, right? Because the fraction of people who are not making it to exam, or for whatever the reason they're having a bad year, I think it's still relatively so much lower than who hustle, who want to get into IIT, who have been trying for like 2 to 3 years, and some people take this long-term course where they spend another 1 to 2 years just to get into IIT.
yeah.
I,
So
I
that's
think I think it's still challenging, and not everyone has the same resources or the support system,
that is true.
right?
With the recent rise of coaching classes everywhere,
Yeah,
means without that, I don't think so. Now you can crack IIT. Like
sure.
previously, there were schools were really good that most of the coaching, I would say IIT level coaching would happen in schools itself, and professors and teachers were really good in teaching those subjects. But nowadays, because of coaching classes, nobody wants to teach in school, and they would rather have their own coaching classes. And if a student wants to go into IIT, he or she almost always have to go to coaching classes.
Sure.
Now there is no exception nowadays. So
Exactly. I
yeah,
think
that's
even at this point that is true to a certain extent. But yeah, I think the remote or the online coaching definitely changed the game. The value, you know, I cannot at this point say that, hey, I don't have enough resources to get into IIT
that is true.
if I'm back in the school, right? Because I have all the opportunities and
Yep,
so much
yep,
content is available online.
that is true. Yeah,
That's good. So what are your three biggest takeaways that you can say
right.
from IITs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it, I would say, first and foremost, which even many other colleges, even NITs give that, and other colleges also do, is there are people, you meet people of different cultures and different backgrounds. It can be different culture background, different financial background, and you'll meet all of them and you learn more about them. And you learn more about how to talk to them, how to approach them, and you'll come out of your shell. I feel like that is the biggest advantage of going into any of these schools. That even it doesn't mean necessarily you have to be an IIT or NIT, but if you go into any kind of particular college which offers that, where the students are coming from all over the country, then it definitely opens you up, and you are definitely more exposed to all the different cultures. So that is very good.
Nice.
Then one more thing I would say on the same line is all of them are really smart people. Like where they all of them are very enthusiastic about what they want to do and what they want to achieve in life. So you learn more about where even your direction will lead to. Sometimes you are not sure. Yeah, many people in India, that is very common that you'll just say, parents will just say that, you know what, just do engineering and after that you can think about it. So once you go into this kind of college, that will give you a perspective. Oh, this guy is doing this thing. Maybe that might be something I want to do in the future. You,
Right.
it basically opens lots of door in your mind to approach. So that is one big takeaway. Then other takeaway, obviously, because of the label itself, it opens lots of door. As long as you are staying in India, yeah, in the US, nobody cares. Nobody gives anything about IIT or anything at all. But as long as you're in India, then it opens lot of business doors, and it also opens a lot of social circle doors, I would say.
For
If you
sure.
want to go into a particular social circle, then yeah, name dropping definitely helps sometimes.
I know, right? Yeah.
So I would say
Yeah,
that is
that's
yeah.
true. Actually, that's so true. Because, for example, if I'm meeting an IT guy, I actually have a higher respect. Unconsciously, it's not that I want to give him a higher respect, but for whatever the thing that he has achieved, right? I still have a high respect because that is one thing that I really admire about, right, getting into IIT. And I think I really I think one of the most important thing is getting the network, right? Getting into the network and learning more from them, and having a broader and deeper perspective than what others would normally have. I guess, yeah, I think that is a really valuable. And just so that I don't feel bad, right? So, what is that something that I didn't miss not getting into IIT?
Oh, so okay. One thing that definitely all the engineering colleges are same is actually learning the topic you'll have to do on your own. There is, even though there might be the professors might be you already everyone would have experienced this, that just because a person is smart doesn't make him a good teacher. Just because you are super knowledgeable in a particular subject doesn't make you an expert in teaching that subject. So that's the same thing in IIT. Like, yeah, all the professors are extremely smart. If you go with a problem, they will able to solve it. But at the same time, explaining that solution might be difficult. So
True.
I would say learnings, you have to do it on your own. Whether you're in IIT, whether you're in any college, at the end, you have to pick up the textbook and you have to start reading on your own. You have to go to browse the internet and then you have to look at the solution. All of those things are unchanged anywhere in all the colleges in India.
Yeah, I can no, I totally get it, right? That's what happened in my case as well, because at least in most of the college, I think, not just in the college that I went to. So I think the faculty is not up to the standards, because we struggle a lot to get into some good colleges. But whenever we get there, right, I don't think the faculty is not equally smart, or at the same time, I cannot say not everyone can teach the subject as they want to teach as well,
right.
So I think after first year, first semester, I was like, okay, this is not going to work out, I guess. So I'm just on my own. So I barely attended classes, and I was like, okay, whenever the exam comes in, I just spend some time to just skim through the the syllabus, and somehow made it. But yeah, so definitely learning is something that we have to do on our own. And actually, I can see, in fact, how that can help us in the long run, right? Because even at this stage, we have to constantly find a way to educate ourselves. Right, because of the career transitions or because the work nature. At this, earlier, if you know Java, that's all you need to code on. But at this point, the stack is so much diverse, and expectation in the job is so much diverse and also deeper. So we have to constantly find a way to educate ourselves. So I think that whatever we went through, be it IIT or be it other college, any engineering college, right? So I think that has been helping so many Indians to thrive, right? That is another reason, like, every Indian can have a, good, most likely will have a good, IT career compared to some other careers, right?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, if you compare like the US education system, here almost everything is spoon-fed to you. And so you don't have to, you do have to think about topics and stuff, but you don't have to solve the problem. You're not on your own. At the end of the day, you're not on your own. You have help available. Whereas back in India, it's like you are on your own. You have to do it somehow. You do it, you figure it out, everything. So
exactly.
I agree totally with your point that, that's why Indians are thriving in the IT field. It's because we have learned to solve the problem on our own.
True.
And that's why if given any problem, even outside of India, and when you're any other field of problem, we know that we'll figure out some way to solve it whether we have help or not.
Exactly,
so I
right?
agree with your point,
Exactly. You don't, which also means that you don't always have to be smart.
Right.
I mean, obviously, being smart really helps, but as long as you can figure out a problem, given to you, no matter what you do. So that is the biggest, skill set that we need to thrive in this, career, or tech career at least, right?
Yep.
Nice. So I also want to ask you this, right? Because, which is something similar that I went through, because I was an electronics and communication engineer back in India.
Right.
And just so that I don't want to get into IT. I did my master's in industrial systems engineering so that I can get into my manufacturing
Interesting.
or things like that.
Okay.
Right. And then somehow eventually, because of the nature of the jobs, or somehow we eventually ended up being a software developer. So how was the transition for you? Because for me, I had to go through a lot. And particularly in your case, right? You spent, you took the machine learning course. You did the master's in machine learning,
Right.
particularly when it is in the peak boom, right? And then you spent a lot on the education too, right? And
True,
then why
true,
did you make the shift of being an ML engineer to
Yeah.
STE?
So let me go back to my bachelor days. So bachelor's, obviously, just like you, I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering. But after that, I had my green card back in 2010, and I knew that I'll have to transition and move to US by the end of my bachelor's. So I already started prepping and giving the GRE and all those other entrance examinations which are needed for masters over here. I started doing that since end of third year and the beginning of fourth year of my bachelor's over there. So I started prepping for my masters. I got admission into, again, I did a master's in machine learning, signal processing, and image processing, because in my bachelor's in my last year, I did a project in signal processing. So that's what piqued my interest. And at that time, I was so shocked because, in your 20s, their 20s is for career changes. So I kept on thinking, okay, I definitely don't want to go in IT. I see all these people, they're constantly on their basically laptop. They are just coding. It's totally blacked out and they are not looking anywhere else. Their entire day, they are stuffed in their room. I don't want to do that. And even though, so same thing, I got admission in my bachelor's I had an option to select computer science as well. But I decided to go for electrical, even though computer science was at the peak at the time, because I was very sure at the end of my 12th grade that no, whatever happens, I don't want to go into IT field. I'll pick anything else, but not IT. So I picked electrical engineering. Then at the end, I did a project in signal processing, which was related to some biomedical signal processing. I really liked that project. So I said, why not do my master's? Anyway, I have to do my master's to come to the US. Why not do my master's in signal processing? At that time, I learned a little bit of machine learning as well. So I said, okay, this field looks interesting. It doesn't involve heavily computer science oriented. I don't have to do much software engineering, but this is something of my interest and it relates to electrical engineering as well. So that's how I jumped into master's at University of Michigan, and I did my master's in machine learning and signal processing. But what happened was at the end of my master's, all the signal processing jobs, I'll talk of both signal processing and machine learning separately. So of the signal processing jobs, only jobs available are still they are in defense. If you're not doing defense, then no other proper public sector companies are going to offer you job in signal processing. There are none. There are only few minor jobs available at hardware side, I would say signal processing like Apple, and that's very difficult to get in the first place. So I said, okay, signal processing is out of the way, because I remember applying for internship in signal processing my entire first year of my master's, and just without any luck. On first day of career day, it was like I almost applied to 90 or 100 companies, but all of them said no signal processing jobs. You have to go for defense. And the problem with defense companies is they require citizenship clearance. So lots of new oncoming graduates who are doing machine or who are doing signal processing in the US, when they first come, they don't realize this, that they think, oh, it's just defense, I'll get in, even though I have a normal Indian visa. But that's not the case, because just the US government, they don't sponsor. They require US citizenship for a security clearance to get a job in defense. I didn't know about it at that time. So I said, okay, now that door is permanently closed, or at least it's temporarily closed until I get my citizenship. So I said, okay, let me try to think about, I already have a machine learning degree as well. So let me try to attempt that. And there where I got a weird response. All of the big companies, they're willing to basically at least talk to me. But their problem was they're saying, oh, you're not doing a PhD, huh? You're just doing a master's and you're ending your career at that. We are only looking for PhD candidates, because we need a candidate who has very deep knowledge of machine learning. Not just a master's knowledge is not enough. We need someone who actually is doing research in machine learning. I said, oh my goodness, I was in a total panic attack at that time that, oh my God, what did I do my master's for? Like no machine learning jobs, no signal processing jobs. What should I do? And at that time, all of us were doing masters with me who came from India, right? All of those 20 or 30 group of people, all of us Indians, like we were worried that what is the next logical step? What can we do? And then only logical step that came to our mind was moving to software field. That was our only savior, because that was the only job or only sector that will give us a job and give us an opportunity to actually pay our student loans. Because all of us came up, either they took a loan in the US or they took a loan back in India, which is very high interest rate, and you have to pay it up as quickly as possible. I'm sure you know about it. So the only possible logical solution was to actually move to software. So at that time, at my second year of my master's, I started learning more about software engineering. And plus, obviously, I didn't have as good of an experience as the people who did their bachelor's in computer science. So for us, it's very tough to start at a late stage of a master's game to get familiarized with all computer science concepts and apply to thousands of places. Your resume is not in a proper shape because it's more focused towards electrical engineering rather than the computer science. You have to do lots of things to actually get your foot in the door for computer science. So that was my entire struggle.
Exactly.
Wow.
Wow.
I think it would be similar stuff, right?
Yeah. Mine is something similar, but one thing that I want to emphasize is our hesitance that we had when we were in 12th grade, right? We somehow, we were told, or, we were like, there was so much content, I guess, saying that, hey, IT is boring. You'll be doing the robotic stuff. You won't have the fun. You will always be the computer. Maybe doing a lot more intense, I guess, work. So somehow this thought was ingrained, right? That, hey, there is no innovation, you can't do much in IT and things like that.
Yep.
So which is another reason, even though I had the opportunity to get into computer science, at least relatively to a good school, than getting into electronics and communication. Like, okay, nope, I'm not doing electronics and communication. Yep. And for my master's, I was like, okay, I realized that, okay, I wasted 4 years. But at the same time, my goal is super clear that I don't want to get into IT. So somehow, some random, who takes industrial engineering after electronics and communication, right? I was like, okay, let me do it. So then I did that somehow. So after the same struggle, right?
How did you fit in? Because I want to talk more about this transition, because this is a very different transition than my transition. My transition was still like bachelor's. I did signal processing at the end of the project, so it was more smoother. Whereas you totally did completely separate something in bachelor's, whereas the field of my master's industry is way too different. So how did you cope up with that, and what were your struggles in the first year of master's?
Dude, so you had to, so I came with an intention that I'll be doing manufacturing and supply chain management, because supply chain is something that dragged my attention because of the opportunities and things like that, or because of my assumption of the opportunities that existed. I see. I guess. So, but once I came here, right? So something interesting happened in the first week of my school. So I somehow started going to every professor and say that, hey, I need scholarship because I need some financial assistance to survive in a peaceful way. So somehow I got this, assistantship.
Nice.
So in the human factors and ergonomics field, right? So something that I never heard. That's something I don't know that the field existed for sure. But all I need is the money and the opportunity, right?
For the viewers, you can expand more on what the TA shape and what the TARA and
so
shape is. The
assistantship is something that I get to where my whole tuition fees is paid off, and on the top of it I get monthly stipend just so that I do the research work with the professor on a certain project. So that was a really life-changing opportunity in a way, because until then, I never thought of the research. I don't know what the research is about, and I don't know the field. So there are like so many things that I had to figure out.
Gotcha.
But somehow, maybe the nature of engineering, right, where you had to figure out on your own, I think that really, came into play here. Right. So in the first semester, I struggled. Oh my God, because doing masters without the background in, the proper...
the same field. Yeah, exactly.
The same field, right? So it's a lot more. It was challenging, but somehow I got the right support, I guess, and eventually.
So, what was that right support? Was it the people around you, or was it
the people around me, like who are doing the masters? They're able to guide me in certain ways, and the professor that I was working with has a really high bar. For example, when I had to publish a research paper, and I just took the printout and handed it over for the verification. Let's say I type like 1,000 words, and the feedback is about like 2,000 to 3,000 words. Like, okay, exactly right. Because the writing particularly sucks more than our speaking skills. When you go into this, right?
So,
and the writing for the academic research is the whole different skill set.
Even most of the very high bar. So
exactly right. Even most of the native speakers may not be good at that. So so that was a really peak, like intense moment in my career, right? And then so what I did was just stepping in the library for longer hours, and somehow going to professors, just being open. Hey, I suck at this. I need more help. Somehow figured a way to get good grades. I wasn't the best student out there, but I also somehow found a way to navigate. Get these. This is not like the Indian system, right? Where you take one exam and you either hit it or miss it. But here, it's constant projects and things like that, which really helped me because I used to show the intent, which professors are expecting, and I used to deliver to a certain level. So somehow those help me navigate there.
I feel like that's a really good takeaway that one point which I'll hold on to is that when you're coming here for the first time and you're doing masters in your first year, right, don't hesitate to ask for help and reach out to the professors, because when we come from the Indian background, we don't necessarily do that. We are more problem solvers by ourselves, so we like to ask in our own Indian group, but we won't actually ask the professor or ask the other groups for help. So that's one thing I would emphasize again, which you brought up very nicely, that don't hesitate to go to the professor and ask for help. Go hit the library, ask any other person for help as well. Don't be more extrovert, I would say, in that matter.
Sure, exactly right. So I think once we are in US, I think our perspective had to really change. Get all the help you need. People are really willing to help, right?
Right.
So if you even I used to be a lot more confined to my own circle, but apparently the university that I went to, me and my friend are only the Indians who are doing the masters. So I went to this university called the university name is North Carolina Agricultural and Technical University, and it's a HBCU, which means that historically black colleges and universities. So which means that at least 95 plus people are African American, whom we call as black, and so the vibe and environment is a lot different. I want to do an entire episode on itself, but that was an interesting interesting phase for me. But that also really helped me. Just made me feel so much comfortable reaching out to people, and I felt actually as a home.
So when do you think you started interacting socially with other students over there? Because I remember that in my first semester, at least in my master's, I hardly talked. I tried to talk to as many people as possible, but in my friend group, there was no other person there who was not Indian. All in the first semester was only Indian group. And obviously I would say that's a problem with all immigrants or all Asian immigrants specifically in the US when they come from masters. They specifically stick to their own clique and they don't actually come out of that. It's always that case. So because as you mentioned that there are only 2 Indian students, right? So it's difficult to just stay with them all throughout the master. So obviously you need to have more social interaction. So we'll need to interact more with other students. So when did you start developing that? Were you started right away or sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So that's a good point, right? In the sense, I think for me, looking back at it, right? I think I've always been a little more of extrovert in the sense that go and talk to people, to figure out something. So I was never hesitant. But it's a whole different experience when you come to US, right? Because you don't know, and the English and the accent is not too Indian. Sure. Now it's too Indian. But whenever after
there's always
college,
a communication gap.
There's always a communication gap, particularly with African American. I still have so much struggle understanding some of the accents because they are. The accent is too high for me to get a grasp of, and they talk super fast. So there was this communication barrier. But for me, one thing that helped is I had no other option, right? And
Right.
except, if there is any option for me to tap onto some, immigrant circle, I would happily go on and do it. But for the fact that, I never had to that option. And also the other fact that, these African American universities and the people there are so chilling and so welcoming. I'm sure it would have been a whole different experience if I went to other school. But
Right.
here, the fact that they are so welcoming, and even the professors are like so welcoming for me, I really feel like home at the university. So after a month or two, and I was like, okay, I'm just there. I started participating in some events. Like going
Nice.
to some, hanging out with people more. I still hung out more with the immigrants or like Indians
That's
around
always
at
it's
home.
difficult. Yeah.
But still, I think I had a fair share of experience, interacting with African American, which eventually helped me in many ways. Even at work, I still interact
Right.
a lot more with them. I connect more with them, and I do a lot more activities at work too, which
For
helps the African
sure.
American and create that impact.
I totally agree. Again, I would reiterate on that one point which you again said that getting basically what I'm paraphrasing here, but more it's getting out of your comfort zone and reaching out to people. So
Really.
I read that one line by some author ago that he said that your comfort zone, it definitely puts a floor for you to stand on, but it
Yeah.
also puts a ceiling over your head. So
Yeah, that's a
if you
really nice way to say it. Yep.
if you cannot break out of your comfort zone, then you will never know how high you can go, or what are the achievements, or what are the experiences you can achieve, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. You are just putting the barrier yourself. It's not someone
Right.
else doing that.
Correct.
It's so happy just to look around and say that, hey, I'm super happy, but your potential is also really lot. And we won't experience our potential, unless we really go into wild and figure out what are the skill sets,
Makes
right?
sense. Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. Yeah.
That's a really really good point to add. Cool. So another topic, I know we can talk all of these into too deep, take it too
Right,
deep,
right.
and talk for hours. But one thing that I want to emphasize in this episode is the career transition, right? And how we both worked at FAANG or the top tier tech companies, but we didn't start there. And considering with our non computer science background, we had to hustle a bit more than how it is for the regular techies or with the proper background. So one thing, right, if without you, my job would have been so difficult to get it. I'm not even sure whether I would have made it to FAANG or not, because we were, having
just
so chill time at Capital One, and somehow you started preparing out of the box. And then I was like, okay, I think that is something that I want to do. As I just started, and you pushed me. We had this conversation that, dude, why are you not, lead coding, or why are you not, working on interviews, things like that.
Right.
So yeah, so you took the step and you helped me. You pulled me up to your bar.
Right.
So can you share some of your experience in terms of firstly, why do you want to? What made you to think that, hey, you want to get into these top tech companies? And secondly,
Sure.
what is the process? Like, how did you start?
All right. Yeah. Let's answer the first question for now, because that's I have a clear idea of. So when you first join any kind of tech company, not like a top tier tech company, but any tech company at that time, and especially coming from a different background, like how we did, at that time, all your thought process is, okay, I'll basically try to do good at my job, and and you have an imposter syndrome in your mind. That's always there. It's for the first, I would say, few months, and sometimes it even lasts for a year. It's very difficult to get rid of that. Oh, you are not good enough because you came from a different background. They might find out that you are actually not capable of actually doing this work. They might kick you out at that time. So you are just grateful for the position given to you. You are just grateful for the pay given to you, and you are more comfortable. Why should I even try and achieve or aim for a higher thing when they have already given me so much. This company has given me so much, and see how they, even though I came from different background, they are treating me so nicely. Why should I even go for a higher thing? The life is so good right now. I have to work only this many hours. Everyone knows me. Why should I even go for the other thing? But after you do that for a year, 2 years, 3 years, when you start thinking about or start talking to more and more people in your field, you'll come to notice that, okay, you are, and anyway, obviously the imposter syndrome actually goes away. At that time, you notice, no, you are here because you are capable enough, because you are good at what you do. So if you're good at what you do, why can't you go and achieve something higher as well? You are perfectly capable of doing that. You should go and achieve higher. And yeah, obviously it all depends on your situation, right? Means if you're, let's say, late in your career, like let's say you're in your late 30s or even in your 40s and you're deciding to retire after 5 years, obviously that's not a point to make a transition. Then you have kids and you have to take care of them. So that's a whole different story. But earlier when you're starting your career in this particular field, at that time, once obviously your imposter syndrome goes away, at that time you should think about that. Yes, you are capable enough, and yes, you should try to achieve higher at the highest level possible. Don't put a ceiling over your head. Try to break through it. Try to achieve as much as you can, because this is the time to take all the risk in the world. You have time, you have the capability, you should do it. So that's what I noticed, that all the other people around me, they are trying and striving for doing something good or great with their life. You're capable enough, you should do the same thing. So why not achieve for what is the best thing, or what is the greatest thing you can achieve in our software engineering field per se? So one thing, there are 2 or 3 things I would say. One thing is obviously forming your own startup and becoming a CEO of the startup and making sure that you're making a difference in the lives of other people via that particular company which you're forming. The other thing is going for a company which has the highest tech standards and working for them and pushing the products and developing features for that particular product and getting the highest status possible over there. So I would say those are 2 different paths I saw at that time. And obviously I didn't have an entrepreneurship mind, or I have a little bit now, but that time I was more looking forward to just doing what other people have already done and trying to more push the boundary of that field rather than developing something of my own. So that's when I switched from my mind that, okay, now it's time to actually move and try to aim for higher stuff.
Now that's really good points, and a good insight that you brought there. I'll pause you there for a bit. The point that you mentioned about the imposter syndrome, that is so true. Particularly, I think when you're out of school and if you're getting a job with a higher salary,
right,
you're like, okay, hey, and then if you have a good team and if your life is so comfy, so you will get to the point that, hey, this company has done so much for me, so I will just stay here forever. I speak to and the imposter syndrome, right? Because when you work in a good company, obviously you will always find more talented people around you.
Right.
So which means that you always feel that, hey, I still have a lot more to learn. Can I even go to some other good company, right? I don't know.
Right.
So it takes really a while to get out of the box that, hey, okay, at least I'm part to them. So it's time for me to get there. And even at Amazon, right? For me, I still have that, after it's been 2 years.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah,
that doesn't it I feel like because we both have transitioned to other different companies, we both can attest to that whenever you join a new company, even if you are joining as a junior engineer, you are joining as a mid-tier engineer, you are joining as a senior engineer, even you are joining as an architect, the first few months you'll always feel imposter syndrome. It's just like the norm. You have to get used to it. You have to work through that emotions.
Exactly. And yeah, just constantly remind that's okay. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, which is good because you're learning from others. But you also don't, shield yourself that, hey, you don't have to feel bad saying that, hey, I'm not the best person here. I suck at it. I don't want to go to other companies and things like that. So those shouldn't come into the play whenever you want to, make the career transition. Even in the day-to-day work, the imposter syndrome really has some sort of side effect on the work, right? Because you constantly find a way to, feel bad, which obviously affects, the work and the personal life in many ways, even though if you don't realize. So, and the other part that I observed in many people that, once they get comfortable, because getting into other tech company is motivating for two reasons. For one, what you said, right? Hey, I want to build something cool, want to be part of some bigger system where I
Right.
can make the impact and obviously get the brand out of it, right?
For sure.
And the second one is the money, because this a lot better. If you switch companies, you kind of double the pay. Not literally
For
double
sure.
the pay, at least, but you make a significant increase in the pay.
Yep.
But the people that I've spoken to, are so into the shell that, hey, I think the life is so good here, even if I'm making double the money, I don't want to take the stress that most of the people in the tech takes. I think that's one way to get them comfortable and say that, hey, make a little lazy, in my opinion. But they also have a different perspective that, hey, I just want to enjoy, and relax, enjoy the life and, relax a bit. So what do you say for them?
Oh, yes.
What's your
So I
opinion on
have
it?
a really good example that comes to my mind. So, or even it's going on right now as well. So those people who actually feel that, oh, they are very comfortable right now, it's life is good, don't want to achieve. But even then, whether you want to switch or not, whether you're going to switch or not, it's a whole different point, rather than you're always ready to switch or not. I would say always be in the lookout to be ready to switch. Don't have to switch. You have to be ready. And why? Because we have seen the recent just past 6 months, there have been several layoffs, right? In the tech
Yep.
sector as well, there were several layoffs. So you never know when your job is in jeopardy. I had
Yep.
a friend that who was working at a really good reputed company, and then he was very comfortable. He was working there for 6 or 7 years. So he was very well satisfied with his job, and he was at a higher up level as well, that he was well respected and everything. But just because of the org change and just because of the general market turn, his entire department was laid off. So at that time,
Wow.
what can you do? Because see, the thing is, you're not in the same mindset of a person who is ready to switch. So at that
Sure.
time, you have to do the learnings right from a point zero instead of point one. And there's a big difference between, as you can today know, that there's a big difference from going from 0 to 1 and compared from going from 1 to n. 1 to n is very easy, but zero to
Yep.
one is a lot difficult to go to.
I totally
So
agree, right?
I would say
And
for, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So I was just saying that, yeah, so for those people, even though it's totally fine to be comfortable with where you are at, but just keep on interviewing every year or so that you know what the current market condition is. First of all, you'll also know what your pay grade is. You'll know that are you getting paid with the market rate or not. If so, should you be satisfied? Yeah, if you are satisfied with underpaid because of a good work-life balance, that's a different story. But if you're not, if you want to get, and obviously everyone wants to get paid competitively with the market, then you should interview every yearly. That will give you the pay rate, and also that will keep you or make you ready if certain bad situation do arise. At that time, you know what to do to jump.
Exactly.
So those are two
And it
biggest
is it
things
is
for me.
super important for the immigrants, right? Because our career is at stake. Because if you don't get a job in 60 days, you have to
Right,
leave US.
right,
So and I wouldn't have thought this way, because it is absolutely true and makes sense that you have to be interview ready no matter where you are at, because
hmm,
you can think that nobody can fire me because there are so many other people. But what if the org is gone? Your
right,
VP is gone too. Like,
right.
it's, we cannot just, we have, this is not a family, right? It's a company,
Correct.
and company is always bigger than you. So
Right.
because it has users, it has its own justification to fire you for
For sure.
good, for all the right reasons.
For
You
all
cannot
the
go
right
cry
reasons.
about it. Even if you go cry,
That is
nobody
true.
cares because your
Yep.
family is impacted, you are impacted.
Yep.
And I think the most important takeaway here is being interview ready every
Right.
year, right? I think
Yep.
that's one thing that I'll take away with me, because I got a little lazy in the past 2 years, or I was, always convincing myself that I have something, my plan is entirely different. But even though that is the case, I want to make sure that I'm interview ready,
Hmm.
with the current market situations and just so many things. Things can change tomorrow. Who knows?
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a very good point that you brought up there. Thanks for that.
No worries.
And this is the reason that I want to have open conversation, right? Because when we
Yep.
talk regularly, we don't always discuss all this stuff, and
For
this
sure.
is
Yeah.
not the normal advice or the perspective that everyone gets.
True. True.
So
I agree.
that's great. So since we're talking about being interview ready, right?
Hmm.
So that is the most trickiest part, and particularly, for example, when you want to, getting the first job is okay, but when you're aiming for something like FAANG or the big top tier tech companies,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
process is whole different. I didn't realize that, I had to work, so hard, I had to learn so many things, I had to relearn, my thought process, they're just, it's an effort by itself, right? It's a whole project, or,
Mhm.
it's a long, you need a lot more
Yeah,
commitment, and you need a lot more planning, more than
right.
anything else. So
Yeah.
so can you
So,
give me your tips,
mhm,
so that I can just let's assume I'm a new college grad, or I'm a newbie into the tech field,
right.
and I want to get into FANG. So what are
Gotcha.
the what is the guidance that you will give me?
Gotcha. So let me take one step back and
Sure.
talk about how getting a job in tech is easy. Getting a good job in tech is very difficult. That's
Yep.
two whole different things which you brought up. So I want to just reiterate on that thing as well. That yeah, if you want to get a job in tech, yes, you will get a job in tech. Getting a job in tech is not difficult. You'll get a job for 60K or 80K or something around that money anywhere in the US if you are just
Sure.
even a little bit good in computer science. But
Yep.
getting a good job in tech or getting into the FAANG or FAANG MG or whatever they call it nowadays, all the acronyms, if you want to get a good tech job, then it is extremely difficult because you have to always be interview ready. As we said earlier, you have to always be interview ready. You have to always keep pushing the boundary. You always have to be prepared. You always have to learn about new code and stuff like that. So there is two different aspects. So for new graduates, don't get into a habit. One thing, don't get into a habit of just getting a job. Yes, getting a job you will get if you are doing a computer science background. Then for those students it will be easier to get just a job. Yes, for obviously electrical engineering who are switching the entire their background and then coming here, then it will be difficult. But once they clear all the basics of computer science, it will be easier to get a job. But now the big question is, now to your main question, that how do you, what steps or what should you do to get a job in FAANG? Then for that, there are several resources online. I can read them. One of them is LeetCode, which you mentioned earlier. Then there is Code Forces and Code Wars, and there's so many, all this uh, I would say coding competitions and coding websites where you should definitely regularly, almost I would say every day, at least practice one or two problems. So do that. The other thing is what many junior engineers don't realize, that and what they focus is just data structures and algorithms, whereas in all the big tech companies, system design is very important.
Agreed.
And not many people realize that. They always just follow, oh, just run all the algorithms and data, just basically keep it in your mind, mug it by heart, and I think you are good to go. But that's not the case. If you want to crack into a higher level, right? Even at the FAANG companies, you might get a lower level if you are not good at system design. But if you
Yep.
can crack a really good system design interview, then you might get a really good level. So
True.
system design is where it separates from getting a normal level at good tech versus a higher level at good tech. And for
Agreed.
system design, what you can do is there are several again books listed online as well. One is called distributed data intensive algorithms or applications, and sorry, designing data intensive applications. Then there is another called database internals, and there are several books and resources where you should learn about distributed systems online. So definitely learn that. Definitely keep practicing all these coding problems. And another thing is how to answer a question, which many people don't realize, but that's also a make or break in interviews. When they
Exactly.
want to see that whether you can communicate well with the interviewer or not. Like
Yep.
if you are going to be hired, then you obviously are going to work in a team setting. And
Yep.
when a problem is given to you, how do you approach the problem? Are you
Yep.
answering the problem? Are you answering the part of the problem what was asked, right?
Yep.
And knowing that also makes a big impact on the interview, and that will leave them in a happy place. Like if you follow the star approach, which nowadays every company is following, you should have a little bit of understanding of that. How do you frame your question? How do you frame your solution? All those things you should keep in mind. So I would
Yeah.
say these three things you should keep in mind.
Yeah, that's right, right. So, preparing for, learning all the knowledge is one thing. And how do you demonstrate the knowledge during the interviews is a whole different thing. If you remember, while we were, practicing for my on-site interview, so whenever I went on to a whiteboard, or, whenever I want to talk out loud, I just blank out, right? So I barely can talk, or, I still remember those, weird or awkward moments where I just like, okay, do I even know this, or do I even know how to approach this? But I think the preparation, one-on-one preparation, or where you were doing the mock interviews for me, really helped me, to get used to that. So I think that is one takeaway, like, just have to practice the interviews, practice in the real world setting. It's not that, hey, I can just do it in my own IDE. That's not going to work.
Right.
And you have to talk out loud. And even for the lead coding, that gets a little tricky, right? Because at some point, I always, even the imposter syndrome, I guess, that gets me in lead code too, because, firstly, there are all sorts of problems and all sorts of data structures and algorithms, which are like, if I'm a newbie and if I don't have a techie, like computer science background, I just get lost because there is so many concepts to, learn. And if I learn somehow and, write the solution, whenever I see the most optimal solution, I was like, okay, dude, delta evil, how can I think of it? Is it the same for everyone, or is it just my thinking is what?
No,
do you still feel it?
Yeah, it's exactly same for me as well. I feel like it would be same for almost everyone else as well. But the point here, the main thing is you have to keep practicing. Yeah, obviously, when you try a problem, you'll see, okay, you're not able to solve, or you're able to solve with the brute force way, and then you're giving the solution, it's approved and everything, and then you check out the solutions listed, and then you see, oh, the optimal solution. It's like a whole different beast altogether than what you implemented, right? So at that time, you might also think that you're right, that you'll get an imposter syndrome in mind. Oh, am I not good enough? I'm actually a software engineer for such a long time, and I'm still not able to solve this lead code problem optimally. What is wrong with me, or something? Don't think about that, because all of us, it will try to hit you. The imposter syndrome will try to kick your butt. Don't think about that. Try to just keep on practicing. Think about what I do. What it might help, it might not help. What I do is solve with whatever way you can. And after that, once you have solved the problem, look at the optimal solution, and then just try to implement without looking. The next day, don't solve the problem again same day, but next day try to just re-implement that same optimal solution of the same problem. That will actually form, I would say, neural connections in your brain to remember that solution. So
and that remember, understand the pattern, and then learn from them, right? Which means that you are actually becoming a good engineer by doing a lot more optimally.
And one point I wanted to bring up is practicing this lead code, because when you said lead code, never ever stop practicing lead code, because what I have seen in the past, and it is still happening, like, remember when we started lead coding, I think I would say 2 years something ago. At that time, whatever problems were given to us in a medium or hard, now the same problems are given to newbies or the person who is just started lead coding as easy problem. So the level is getting higher and higher. So if you're not in touch with it, so again, it comes to the same point. If you're not interview ready every time, the gap is increasing. The knowledge which was required, it's the same with when our parents studied something currently one way. So the knowledge gap is increasing drastically. So you have to be on the know-how, and you have to keep practicing the stuff.
No, that makes a lot of sense actually, because even when I do interviews at Amazon, or when I shadow the interviews, right, I can see the bar went a little higher, but at the same time, I didn't realize that that's common across other companies as well, which means that I have to double down my efforts on being interview ready if I'm not switching. Cool.
For sure.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I think this is such a long topic. I think we should do an interview on its own for how to get into a top tech company, and for all the reasons that we should do. But yeah, we can plan it some other time. But I just want to we spoke a lot about all these things, but just want to take a step back and see how what are the other things that you do other than the work, in the sense that we spend a lot of time at work, dealing with all these and thinking about all these loans, finances, things like that. But just taking all that away, let's take let's forget all the pressure for a bit. Like, what else do you do just to keep yourself happy and going?
So I would say that definitely falls into what each person's liking is, or whether the person is introvert, extrovert. I fall definitely into the category more of an introvert. What I like to do in my peace and quiet time is not actually go out. Obviously, my fiance is exactly opposite of me. She wants to go out on the moment of opportunity she gets. Whereas I just want to lie down. I want to watch a movie. I want to watch a show or something. I just want to rest. I just want to chill. I don't like to, if whenever I'm given an opportunity of not or being outside of work, you would just find me lying on the couch or on the bed and just watching movies and TVs or something like that. Nothing specific. So I would say it definitely depends from person to person. But whatever makes you happy and takes your eyes away from work is all good time.
True, I totally agree, because when most often I realized, particularly after getting married, that work has got so much into me. Whenever even I'm not working or I'm doing something else, I constantly think about one problem that I missed solving, or one problem that I had to solve, what's next, and things like that. So which means that I'm keeping busy myself with the work, even if I'm not working. So which is not great, because it obviously makes you not being present. It builds pressure more. And particularly when you're married, you cannot afford that. I can say that, right? You cannot afford that. So yeah, so we have to really find a way to distract away for a bit, for all good reasons. Even that helps that helps us to be more efficient at work.
For sure, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, since I know your fiance, and I always want to ask this question, right? Because I know she's not Indian, and you're from Gujarat,
right?
And I'm sure your parents are proper Desi, like all of our parents are,
right.
In the sense that they won't approve the whole different religion or the caste or and other stuff. But you're just switching the nation. Forget about caste and religion. If I go to my parents and say that, hey, I'm going to marry different caste people, they're like, they'll be super mad at me. So but how did you navigate this phase?
So that's a very long story. So the thing is, it's always a challenge. Like obviously, it's always a work in progress. Obviously, at the first time, and I told them, they already know that when I was even dating not just my fiance, but before I was dating other people at that time as well, they knew and they were not happy about it. But I said that I'm not going to discriminate, or I'm not looking for a specific only Indian. I'm just looking for open-minded people whose thinking and thought process actually matches mine.
Nice.
I'm looking for that kind of like-minded person. So I'm not going to look at the skin of the color or anything like that.
Nice.
Oh, sorry, my bad, color of the skin. But yeah, I'm not going to stick with a particular thing. I'm going to be more open-minded. Obviously, they are not looking in the same way. They have their own thought process of what goes into that. They know that, oh no, because there's a different culture and different nationality all the way involved, so it will be very challenging. Obviously, as parents, they always think about basically their kids' happiness, right? So they are just thinking from that perspective that because it's different culture, and plus your mother tongues are also different, you will always have challenges, and eventually you won't be happy. That's what their thought process lead to, that you won't be happy. Whereas the same place, if that equation is changed, and if you're marrying an Indian person, then at least you won't face those challenges. So their thought process is that way. But then I have to explain them. It's again a work in progress, and I have to explain them. But you do realize that just by solving one problem, there's still n number of problems still to solve in a marriage. As you're already a married person, you know that marriage is also always a work in progress thing as well.
Exactly.
So it's not like just by solving, okay, now it's same caste or same religion, everything, all the problems are gone. Just like that. It's not like that. You have to still work through it. So we have talked about that. Now earlier they were in basically strong disagreement and strong disapproval, but slowly that has changed, and now slowly they have started accepting. And over time, once we get married and everything, it will change. So yeah, they are now slowly started to change their perspective as well.
Nice.
But I would say it's for people who are of our parents' generation, they have a different thought process, so it takes time for them to adjust. And I'm saying it might be the same thing for me as well. When I grow up and when I have kids, I would have something else which I'm holding near and dear to, right?
True.
And I won't allow my kid, or I would have my kid only having some specific requirements. But obviously, even I'll also take time to get adjusted. So I would say it's constant adjustment.
Yeah, right. So it's always a work in progress, but I want to, iterate a couple of points here, right? So one is, parents' perspective is changing over the time. It's because they are getting to know the person better. So, which is the first point that we talked about, right? When you come to US, find a way to meet more and more people so that your perspective actually changes, right?
Right.
So once your perspective changes, that's a whole different ball game.
Right.
So glad that your parents are still okay with it and trying to learn more and be okay. That's a really good sign. And it's also work in progress. At some point you will feel exhausted, I guess. I to be honest, I didn't realize that you will come this far. No offense. It's just because of the pure parents pressure, because for me I always had that in back of my mind. If I want to date or if I want to try for someone, approach them, I was like, hey, this is not going to go well with my parents. I also don't want to hurt them. I was like, but the one takeaway here is, it can be persistence. If you know for the fact that you can convince them to, make them be happy over the, in the long run, I think then you have to be a lot more persistent and you have to find a way to educate them better.
Yeah. At the end is, I would say it's your particular life. It's not your parents' life that you're living. So you have to be happy. Once you're in your, let's say you're in your late 70s or late 80s, at that time you won't have your parents at that point. So you have to be happy with yourself and content with the choices which you make, not what your parents made for you.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
You have
so
to be
it's so easy.
that.
For example, in an arrangement, it's so easy to go and blame parents that, hey, if not for you, I would have married a different person. You cannot just say that. Even if you say
it's
that,
still your choice.
What's the point? Yeah, exactly. What's the point? It's already gone. So what are you going to about it now? So that makes a lot of sense. It's your life, and it's your choices that led you to this phase. So either it's what kind of marriage it is, you have to own the choices, and that applies to the large part of the career as well. Even our change in masters, changing the job families, like becoming software engineer. They might have, those might be in the worst cases or worst choices that if things went the other way. But we have to own them, irrespective of what or how they are, treating us, right? So.
Yep.
Cool. I know, it has been a long conversation, but there are so many points that I took away. I don't think we would have spoken these, on the offline conversation.
For sure.
I'm sure it will be a great learning experience for many of the listeners, if anyone tunes in, by the way. Thanks a lot for that, and thanks for your valuable time. I know, it's not easy to take away whenever.
It was an absolute pleasure. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope it was fun. We can talk more and we can do a lot more BS about it offline. But thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.